You're listening to the Holistic Spaces podcast brought to you by Mindful Design Feng Shui School. Episode 191, Fall Equinox and the Metal Element. Welcome to episode 191 of the Holistic Spaces podcast, where we hope to inspire, educate, and empower you to create your own holistic spaces that nurture and resonate with you. Angie Cho and Laura Morris are the founders of the Mindful Design Feng Shui School. We teach a Feng Shui certification program online at mindfuldesignschool.com. Be sure to check us out. Sign up for our mailing list. You can find a link in our show notes, or you can visit our website, mindfuldesignschool.com. And for our newsletter subscribers, we offer different free workshops that are only available if you actually open our emails and you're on our newsletter list. So we don't even we don't post it on social media or our blog or anything. They're really just for those people who are on our list.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to talk today about this transition between leaving the summer and welcoming the fall as we're just about to approach the fall equinox. So it's a little bit like, it's always a poignant moment in time every year when we say goodbye to summer and we welcome the fall equinox. And it really marks this shift from the long summer days to these shorter, crisper fall days as we head into winter. So there's just something about the quality of the air that feels very poignant. And I think we all understand that. And there's, that song Autumn in New York that feels very sad and poignant. And then there's even that phrase that we're entering the autumn of our lives. So there's a lot of meaning for humans when we look at this time of year. So as feng shui consultants, Laura and I really look at how this informs our practice. How is this connected to feng shui? How do we start to look at these seasonal transitions with our qi, with our life force energy? And one thing is to celebrate and acknowledge these transitions and embrace them, and also be curious about how they express all the things that we work with. How does the fall, how does this time of year express the metal element? How does it express saying goodbye to fire energy and then soon making space for water element? And so before we begin, we just wanted to cover the important bases here. So September has the equinox, and it's known as the autumn equinox. And it marks the point in the year when the sun crosses the equator. And so essentially the sun's crossing the equator, and equinox means equal night and equal day. So as it turns out, at this time of year during the equinox, we have this equal day and night. And this happens around the same time every year. And it actually ties back to our September chi forecast that Laura offered us.
Yeah, because that is it's one of the solar terms as well in the Chinese calendar of solar terms, the 24 solar terms. And we discussed this, so you can go back and listen to our chi forecast for September. But we obviously talked about the equinox because the autumn equinox is in a very important time. It's actually the midpoint of August in the Chinese calendar, because they actually have a beginning of fall in August, because these solar terms last approximately two weeks. So it's the midpoint in autumn, and which, because it is where yin and yang are equal. Like, the idea is that it's just the tipping point. It's the tipping point from all that yang qi of the summer to tipping into more yin, right? So you're at that point where, as Angie said, day and night are equal. But as soon as we transition past that date, you will start to experience more yin qi gradually and gradually and gradually and gradually until we get, as Angie said, to winter, right? And that's the water qi. So this time is solidly moving into metal energy, because metal makes room or creates water, which is going to be the next one, which is winter. So the metal chi of fall is it's about so many things, but one of the things you can think of is, if you just generally think of of what is happening in nature, and the leaves fall and it returns to the soil, and it's this contraction, it's pulling back in of energy, right? Holding energy and drawing energy inward to store it. But it's also in our daily lives. If you look at what's happening, if you live in a rural area, or if you just live in a place where you see farmers markets, you can see that it's a time of completion. Like we're wrapping up the harvest. Like we're bringing everything in, the later produce that comes in, or it's this bounty that's coming in, and it's a celebration as well of this time where we can reflect, we can appreciate on all of this abundance. That's a very, very metal quality, as well as the concept of reflection. Like you're kind of sitting on your porch, in your every year you're that guy sitting on his porch reflecting on his life, right? It's kind of that energy of reflection, and seeing how how the rest of the year is gone.
Yeah, and I also think about the same every year situation is that everyone starts to say, "Oh, it's sweater weather," right? And so this is our reliable shifts that we go through, but it's so comforting to have these reliable shifts, right? Which is what's really disconcerting about global warming and such, because we're starting to see that the few things that we could really depend on, the seasons and the earth and the cycles of nature, are starting to become uprooted a bit. So, but luckily, we can still wake up or go to bed, go to bed knowing that the sun will be up in the morning, right? But
Yeah.
another thing, let's go back to this idea of the equinox. So we're going from summer to autumn. So
Mm-hmm.
another way that you can look at it is we're moving from this yang energy to yin energy. So how can we also see this in our foods, right? So
Mm-hmm.
moving away from cool foods that cool down the yang, the hot summer, and then starting to shift to more a warming, more nourishing diet that's more comforting for a cooler season. And then this whole aspect of the metal element and autumn is related to the Feng Shui Bagua map area of completion, which Laura touched on. And so completion and the metal element are related to autumn, and the color white, the number 7, the feeling of joy and clarity. So I was thinking that if we want to look at how to work with this metal element that's coming from the fall equinox, it's really actually a great time to start to find more focus in your space. Bring in more metal element into your space, because if you are seeking to have a little bit more organization, more clarity, the energy of the season is on your side right now, right?
Yes. Yeah. Naturally, you are feeling a desire to reorganize, I think. I think it also, you're also programmed as back to school, and this is the time when you're kind of you're starting a new, it could be a new semester, a new year when you were, through, or if you have children, it's aligned with that too. It's like, okay, we're going to get organized. We're going to get prepared. We're going to finish things that we've been working on throughout the year, because soon winter will come and you're very limited on what you can do in the winter time, especially if we're talking about the northern hemisphere, and depending on what climate you're in, it can really your ability to do certain things is a little more difficult when you're dealing with cold weather, or your energy is also not as robust. So there's something about fall where you are starting, yes, you're starting to slow down, you're starting to store things, but it's it really does feel like a time of year where you can get stuff done in your home. And I would say that the reason is a practical one too, because we know we're going to be spending a lot of time in the next few months, for like 3 months, sort of focused on being indoors, and, obviously there you can get out and do winter sports and whatnot. But again, there's this focus of, okay, we're going to be in home, we're going to be settled in, we're going to be hunkered down for winter. So preparing for that. And in kind of the way you would set up your home, decluttering, reorganizing, storage, getting things done in the garden that you haven't been doing, things
Yeah,
like that.
but even if you like live in the US, and I grew up in California, and you don't have a cold season, at least in the US, there's always a general feeling after Labor Day that summer has ended, summer school is over, things are changing, and you kind of get things organized.
Mm-hmm.
So if you need more support with that, you could start to look at how to embrace the metal element. If you need a little bit of extra help, that it's not naturally coming to you, or that you're holding on to this summer energy a little bit, you want to hold on to it a little bit longer. And just bringing in metal element can help. Last episode, Laura talked about how you could bring in metal element through your face. But, in your home, you can start to maybe bring in more organizational items. You can start to set aside time to organize more. You can also start to bring in more metallic or white colors into your home. Like maybe it's time to change your sheets into white sheets, or shift some of the things that the colors around you, or the elements around the material elements around you in your home, if you're the type of person that updates that. And you can also use this time of year to get more clarity in general. So Laura talked about how if you're in a colder climate, or if you look back at when we were more in tune with nature, if we look at the agricultural cycles, this was the time that you start to harvest, right? And the planting season is ended, and so you can start to look at that in your life as well. Like, you could be that guy that Laura talked about, sitting on the porch, right? Reflecting on your life. You can see like what is ending, what as you start to see the leaves fall and change color and die away to make way for new growth later next year in the spring. What is it that you can now harvest? What is it that you have worked on this year? And what can you start to let go of that's not going to be supporting you in the next few months of this, transition time of being more inward? Whether that means literally being in your home more, or being more energetically inward. So something as mundane as like putting away the summer clothes and letting go of, maybe like going through your refrigerator, letting go of what is like old food that no longer is that's been there too long. Maybe it's time to compost that. And again, something that I think is a great ritual to do around this time is to also like go through your clothes and go through your things and see what isn't appropriate anymore, and start shifting that. It's kind of like the opposite of spring cleaning, right? Fall cleaning.
Yeah, storing away your seasonal. Every time I do a seasonal wardrobe shift over, I don't know why I purge so much. I got to stop buying so many. I don't think I buy too many clothing, but I guess it is the case, because I'm always like, why do I have this? I don't want this anymore. It's generally when I'm bringing out the other clothes and putting away. Anyway, So yes, it is a good time to get organized. It is a good time to reflect on what also, what works and what doesn't. I feel that that's a really metal energy thing, to be really not self-critical. That's not it. It's to be really discerning and to say, okay, what do I want to do with like the rest of this year? What do I want to do next year? What worked this year? It's a good time to sit back and sort of say, okay, I'm thinking about dipping my toe in this, and then I'm going to start, so because again, these cycles don't turn on and off. And if next spring you're going to have all this energy to do something, let's figure out maybe what that is. Who knows what that is, right? So it's really a good time to do some self-reflection, to figure out what worked, what didn't. And also, organize if that's what your, compulsion to do, which I always have.
Well, Laura is a Virgo.
That's true. It is. Yes. We're in the Virgo season. So that
Virgo and
is like
Virgo season.
double. Yeah.
Extra Laura.
Extra.
Virgo.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we encourage all of our Holistic Spaces listeners, especially the ones that are in the northern hemisphere that are feeling this transition right now from the summer to the fall. We really encourage you to look at what can be harvested at this time, to embrace the transition, to celebrate your successes, and then to prepare for becoming inward, whether that, there's no excuses here. Like, it's warm all the time in California. No, we're not talking about like it being cold or warm outside. We're talking about what is your natural tendency at this time. And there is an importance in finding the stability and support with these cycles of nature, because it gives us a sense of peace, and it gives us a place to stand on and work with, and a baseline. So we hope that you will celebrate all your successes this year, start to harvest what you've done, and celebrate, put your feet up and celebrate in this time, and be proud of yourself for what has passed this year. So thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Holistic Spaces podcast. You can tune in every Monday for a new episode. If you like the podcast, please share it with others, leave a review. All of that really makes a big difference in our world over here. So we'd love to know that people are listening. We'd love to know that this is helpful for you, because it's only one-sided. Laura and I just stare at each other when we do these podcasts, or like all day, we just stare at each other. So thank you so much for listening. Be sure to sign up for our mailing list. We'd love to see you in our inner circle. We'd love to see you on one of our free calls in the future that we only do for newsletter subscribers, or we'd especially love to see some of you in our certification program one day. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week.